Well, for more on the controversy between the NBA and China and the possible way forward, I'm joined live from New York by Mike Bako, sports editor at dailynational.com. Welcome back to the show.
Always good to be with you.
So as we're seeing, big Chinese companies have paid a lot of money for the rights to the NBA with these contracts spanning several years, many of them now suspending or severing those ties. How big of a hit might that be for big Chinese companies like Tencent?
Well, when we think about $1.5 billion, that's what Tencent is paying the NBA to stream the games digitally over the next 5 years. That's less than 0.5% of their total expenditure and revenue. So when you think about $1.5 billion, that's a huge astronomical amount of money, very minuscule to them. What they're dealing with is the PR fallout with fans. As we mentioned, that the NBA is growing exponentially in China. Fans are not going to be able to stream those games. It's going to be a PR hit for them. They're going to have to refund the money. And quite frankly, from a younger demographic, and that's the demographic that we're talking about here, that is latching on to the NBA as their sport, that's where there's going to be some issues in terms of the loyalty of those fans. Will they be up in arms by missing some of the preseason games? Probably not. Once the season rolls around, that's when the real controversy may take hold.
And Reuters is certainly reporting that some streaming subscribers are already asking for refunds. A lot of Chinese fans may not be able to watch when the NBA season starts. Do you expect a big backlash against Tencent?
I don't expect to have a big backlash against them. What I think the ire is going to be is mostly at the NBA and their players, especially some of the players who have not spoken out about this. James Harden, a player on Daryl Morey's team who sent out the tweet, has come out and said, "We love China. We love being here," being very, very surfaced with things, protecting almost his self-interest and his appeal in China. I think if we don't hear other players like Klay Thompson, who has a shoe deal in China, Dwayne Wade, another big shoe deal in China, and other sponsorship opportunities, I think instead of looking at Tencent and drawing the ire of them, they may be looking at the players for not speaking out.
So then how can brands separate the personal views of basketball staff and players versus the NBA as a whole, especially if they don't seem to be on the same page about their views on Hong Kong?
They don't seem to be on the same page, and I think the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, Joe Tsai, said it quite perfectly. It's a third rail issue for a lot of the Chinese people. So I think the NBA didn't do itself any favors with their most recent tweet and statements by Commissioner Adam Silver that basically expressed de facto support for the Daryl Morey tweet and his ability for him to actually say that. NBA saying that they encourage freedom of speech among its employees, certainly taking a different tone than they did immediately in the aftermath of the initial tweet, the initial backlash, and with some of these brands that are temporarily suspending their relationship with the NBA. If you look at that endorsement landscape, the NBA has 25 official league endorsers. 13 of them are Chinese companies. So this is a big hit to the NBA's bottom line. And I think eventually it's going to trickle down to hurting the NBA players in their bottom line, because that $1.5 billion, all of those other hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars go into a pool that make up the NBA salary cap.
Right.
So if that money is not coming in, that money is in fact being taken out of the NBA players' pockets.
Now, Mike, I do want to get to this idea. We know that a lot of North American sports, not just the NBA, have been really trying to develop relationships within China. The NBA, though, has been the most successful. Is there any risk that other American sports leagues could get drawn into this?
I think that they'll get drawn into it if they do what the NBA did. They need to create their own playbook in terms of sticking to the business practice and growth that they want to do in that market, and in fact encouraging their employees, players, management, obviously, not to really say anything that's outside of the lines. Now, when it comes to politics and social issues here in the States, obviously leagues and players, certainly in the NBA with LeBron James speaking out on social issues, they encourage that. But I think that if there are going to be sports like Major League Baseball that's trying to make inroads in China, certainly with the NFL trying to grow its popularity, especially on digital and streaming platforms, I think that they are really just going to want their players and their officials to strictly stick to playing on the field and not making any comments that could remotely come close to that third rail controversy.
All right, Mike Bako there, sports editor at dailynational.com.